Imagine walking through the narrow, winding streets of Boston's North End on a sweltering July afternoon in the 1940s. The war is over, the city is modernizing, but as the sun beats down on the cobblestones, something strange happens. A scent begins to rise from the pavement. It's not the smell of salt air from the harbor, nor the aroma of fresh pasta from a nearby trattoria. It is sickly sweet, pungent, cloying. It's the smell of molasses. For decades after 1919, residents of this neighborhood swore that the ghost of a disaster lived in the very ground they walked upon. They called it the Sweet Apocalypse. It is a story that sounds like a tall tale, a piece of urban folklore designed to entertain children. But for the people who lived through it, it was a waking nightmare. It was a day when the mundane became monstrous, when a staple of the American kitchen transformed into a 25-foot wall of death. This is the story of the Great Boston Molasses Flood. It is a tale of corporate greed, of a world rushing toward a new era of prohibition, and of a structural failure so catastrophic it changed the laws of engineering forever. But above all, it is the story of 21 souls who were swallowed by a dark, viscous tide on a day when
the most efficient way to produce that alcohol was by distilling molasses. Enter the United States Industrial Alcohol Company, or USIA. They saw a golden opportunity for profit. They needed a massive storage facility in a strategic location, somewhere with easy access to the harbor so ships from the Caribbean could offload their sugary cargo. They chose a site at 529 Commercial Street, in the heart of the North End. The North End was and is one of Boston's most vibrant neighborhoods. In 1915, it was a bustling enclave of Italian immigrants. It was a place of tenement houses, crowded markets, and children playing in the streets. And right in the middle of this densely populated residential area, USIA decided to build a monster. The tank was colossal. It stood 50 feet tall and 90 feet in diameter. It was designed to hold 2.3 million gallons of molasses, a staggering 12,000 tons of liquid. But there was a problem from the very first day. The man tasked with overseeing the construction was Arthur Gell, the treasurer of Purity Distilling, a subsidiary of USIA. Gell was a numbers man, a bean counter. He had no background in engineering. He had no experience with large-scale construction. He didn't even consult an architect. According to later testimony,
As soon as the first shipment of molasses was pumped in, the warnings began. The tank didn't just leak, it groaned. Residents living nearby reported hearing strange, metallic thumping sounds coming from the structure. When the tank was full, molasses would seep from the seams in such quantities that local children would bring jars to the site to collect the drippings. Did USIA fix the leaks? No. Arthur Gell's solution was as cynical as it was dangerous. He ordered the entire tank to be painted brown. He didn't want to fix the structural flaws. He just wanted to hide the stains. He wanted the neighborhood to stop complaining. If the tank was the color of molasses, the leaks would be invisible. It was a literal cover-up of a lethal problem. For 4 years, the tank stood there, a ticking time bomb painted the color of chocolate. Isaac Gonzalez, a worker at the site, became so terrified of the tank's stability that he would wake up in the middle of the night, convinced he heard it collapsing. He warned Gell repeatedly. He told him the tank was shaking. Gell's response was to dismiss him as an alarmist. After all, the money was rolling in. By January 1919, the pressure was reaching a breaking point, literally and politically. World War I had ended, but a new conflict was brewing at home: Prohibition. The 18th Amendment had been passed by Congress, and states were rapidly
When it was injected into the tank on Commercial Street, it hit the cold, settled molasses already inside. The temperature in Boston had been freezing, but suddenly a freak heat wave hit. The thermometer jumped from 2 degrees to over 40 degrees in a matter of hours. Inside the tank, a violent physical reaction was taking place. The warm molasses began to expand. The cold molasses resisted. And because molasses is a byproduct of sugar refining, it began to ferment. Carbon dioxide gas started to bubble up, creating an internal pressure cooker. The tank was filled to the very brim, 2.3 million gallons. The steel plates, already too thin and weakened by years of neglect, were being pushed to their absolute limit. The monster was ready to wake up. January 15th, 1919. It was a Wednesday. It was unseasonably warm, a beautiful winter day that had brought the people of the North End out into the streets. Workers were eating their lunch. Children were heading home from school. At the North End paving yard, right next to the tank, several city workers were gathered in a small municipal building, laughing and talking as they ate. Nearby, at Engine 31 Firehouse, firefighters were tending to their equipment. At exactly 12:30 p.m., the silence was shattered. Witnesses would later struggle to describe the sound.
The steel plates didn't just tear, they disintegrated. A 25-foot-high wall of dark, viscous liquid exploded outward. This was not a flood in the way we think of water. This was a gravity current. Because molasses is 40% denser than water, it doesn't just flow, it crushes. It hit the surrounding buildings with the force of a solid object. The wave moved at 35 miles per hour. That sounds slow compared to a car, but for a